This week on the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, we start with a deep dive into Brazilian politics on the Green and Red podcast, where KO and Mike Elk of Payday Report break down how Trump's tariffs are fueling Lula's popularity and why Bolsonaro's MAGA ties still matter.
The political impact has already been enormous. Lula is up for re-election next year. It's expected to potentially be a close race. But now Lula is seen as the defender of Brazil against the imperialist Americans.
Then, it's a recharged return of Art Labor, newly rebranded as Pod Save Ridgewood, where gentrification, affordable housing, and class warfare are all fair game, with a guest who brings heat and humor to the mic.
One of the things the developers would do was try to, like in some buildings did this, they would create a separate entrance for the affordable units to keep them away from the luxury tenants.
So my question is...
To enter the affordable units, you must answer first my riddles 3.
On Union or Bust, Chris Lopez welcomes back their very first guest, Mai Han of Borderlands for Equity, who shares stories of student walkouts, ICE resistance, and the spiritual legacy of migrant justice.
You know, Moses was a migrant, and Jesus was a migrant, and Muhammad was a migrant. And so spiritually, we are a part of a legacy of migrants. And it is incumbent upon us, whatever your faith, if you believe in God or anything good, to show up in this moment.
From Ghana's fishing communities to the global fight for worker dignity. The Labor Link podcast talks with Eric Mawuko Atsiatorme, child laborer turned lawyer, about what it takes to survive, organize, and transform lives at sea.
Once we are out there on fishing expedition, to tell you the truth, it's very physical and quite energy sapping. We start casting the net around 6:30 p.m. We sleep for only 2 hours. And then within that 2 hours, we start hauling the net back.
And finally, we go behind the scenes at Saturday Night Live with the head writers there on Writing from the WGA East as they spill what it really took to pull off season 50 and why even live TV legends can't escape the last-minute scramble.
It was such a funny combo of like people talking about it for a really long time and also in their heads knowing that SNL can only kind of happen really last minute. So a lot of things like big picture things discussed for a really long time, and then also knowing like everyone is going to kick into gear in a different way really close to when it happened.
Also this week, the Union's Power America sweepstakes are back. You could win $40,000 and score an unforgettable trip to New York City. It's free to enter, unionpowerusa.com, and you can boost your chances with some fun bonus actions. No purchase necessary, just the power of union solidarity. Full rules at unionpowerusa.com. Tell them the Labor Radio Podcast Network sent you. I'm Chris Garlock, and that's all coming up on this week's Labor Radio Podcast Weekly. Stories from the front lines of the working class, one podcast at a time.
Zenko from the Green and Red podcast. I'm going solo today. Scott is on holiday. And today we're talking to probably our most frequent guest ever, Mike Elk, who is the senior editor and founder of Payday Report, which does some really great work on labor reporting. But Mike also spends a lot of time covering events from Brazil. Mike attended school there, and in the past few years, you've spent a significant amount of time there. You were there for the election of 2022 and so forth. And Brazil is back in the news again in the last few days because Donald Trump has issued 50% tariffs, ostensibly as a way to get back at Lula for the state indicting Bolsonaro. And so what's happened this week and what's the latest on that?
Well, what happened this week is is let's just give our readers a quick recap. Lula was elected president of Brazil. I mean, he was president from 2002 to 2010, and then he was elected in 2018. And actually, he was illegally jailed in 2018 to prevent him from running for president. The convictions were later overturned, seen to be, pretty dirty. And then in 2022, he was elected president of Brazil. It came out through various means that Bolsonaro had plotted with top generals to have Lula assassinated and to overturn the election results. Currently, Bolsonaro has been indicted. He's been charged. He's had hearings in front of the Supreme Court. His passport's been revoked. He can't travel anywhere. His son, Eduardo, who was a senator, actually fled to the United States before his passport could be revoked and has been given safe haven by the Trump administration. Bolsonaro is very close with Trump. Eduardo Bolsonaro, his son, studied with Trump. Steve Bannon was one of their advisors. They worked closely with a lot of the Trump team. The Trump administration decided that they were going to place a 50% tariff on all goods coming from Brazil. Right now, there were some 10% tariffs placed on a number of countries. Brazil had a 10% tariff placed on it and was not on the list of 21 countries who are going to see their tariffs raised. However, what wound up happening is that Trump came out with a statement saying that they were placing this tariff because they believed the trial against Bolsonaro was a witch hunt. Now, see, this has had a very interesting effect in Brazil. The result of it has been that Lula now is gaining a lot of popularity. Actually, the economic effect of this on Brazil probably won't be that significant. Brazil only exports 1.7% of all its products to the United States, mainly in oil, some iron ore, soy. So it's unclear how huge of an impact this will have if it's only 1.7% of the economy. The political impact has already been enormous. Lula is up for re-election next year. It's expected to potentially be a close race. It's unclear. But now Lula is seen as the defender of Brazil against the imperialist Americans. The one, and yesterday there was a huge protest in the Avenida Paulista, which is like the Times Square of São Paulo, which is the largest city in Latin America. And in the protest, people were holding signs saying, Lula wants to tax the super rich. They're pushing a proposal right now to tax the super rich, whereas Bolsonaro wants to tax everything that we send out of Brazil. So this has come at this is a political gift for Lula of the best degree.
This is Bob Azengo from Green and Red Podcast, going solo today with Mike Elk from Payday Report and our intrepid Brazilian reporter as well.
Art and Labor's back. The NU Art and Labor.
Man,
a whole new
take my
vibe,
hand,
a whole new crew.
make my life.
Actually, we're doing a full
Exciting.
rebrand, and the new name of the podcast is Save Ridgewood.
Yep, because as we gear up for the upcoming mayoral election, we decided that we have to put our money where our mouth is, and we're doing a full in rebrand.
And we cobbled a guest together. Can you believe it?
Insane.
We got a guest.
Insane. We haven't had a guest in so long.
Who is it?
Who is it?
Who is
Ashley,
it?
you tell me, because I can't say your Italian-ass last name.
Hey everybody, this is Ashley Pignataro, aka Vape Kid Jr.
Oh my god.
Beautiful.
Yes!
Fanning oneself.
Vape
Woo.
Kid is here. I was years ago, back in like 2011 or 12, I joined a coalition called Brooklyn Anti-Gentrification Network. And back then, when they were first like rolling out this type of quote unquote affordable housing, like housing groups did try to fight it.
Oh, interesting.
And have been saying like since this like era of kind of like technocratic PPP bullshit, which is like the kind of Matty Iglesias agenda. Like that is what like they're New York City's already doing that sort of like a fake abundance bullshit. Like, and it doesn't work and it sucks.
Yeah.
And they had a one of the things about like mandating that 30% is affordable or whatever. One of the things the developers would do was try to like in some buildings did this. They would create a separate entrance for the affordable units to keep them away from the luxury tenants.
So my question is,
To enter the affordable units, you must answer first my riddles 3.
Exactly. And it was like it was
Cross
stuff
a
like
moat.
you know, like if there was a gym, like the affordable unit, people couldn't use the gym.
Of
It
course
was like
not.
yeah, very like
Well, they're dirty.
they're dirty, exactly.
And I don't want their filthy
They're like the
asses
broken
on my
cup.
rowing machine.
I wonder though. I mean, like put it this way. Like, say, like Bonko scenario, the punkest friend you have wins one of these.
Yeah.
I mean, the places they're gonna turn it. I mean, they would make it beautiful within a couple of days, but the rest of the units, those people are going to be very upset. So I wonder, like, what the like.
Well, that's I think like large-brained conspiracy theory thing about it is that it does like disrupt class solidarity.
Right, which I'm totally fine with. Yeah.
Like it could, but it's. I mean that the developers are intentionally breaking people apart along these lines. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. This was a great episode.
We love you, and we love the People's Republic of Ridgewood.
Pod Save Ridgewood.
Pod Save Ridgewood.
How's everyone doing? Chris Lopez, your union brother on TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. Welcome to another edition of Union or Bust. Anyway, we have a special guest, and I want to say special guest because she was actually our first guest. I think we've been doing this podcast for about 3 years.
3 years, October.
Wow.
3 years, October.
So now this is our 45th episode, and we have Mai Han Afshan, and she is the executive director of Borderlands for Equity. And for people who didn't see our first episode, tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, Juan, for having me. As you know, I am the executive director and co-founder of Borderlands for Equity. It is a pro bono civil rights nonprofit that's intersectional, and we focus on advocacy and education to make sure our community members know what the issues are and how we can be able to really mobilize and show people that they do matter and that they have a sense of agency and they can make real tangible changes on the local level.
Can you give an example of exactly the work that you do? Like an example of someone coming to you for some assistance, or how do they reach out to you? And then what do you do in return? Like, what's your service exactly? So we can like really paint a picture of what you do for work.
So for example, earlier this year, we had students that heard about what was happening on their campuses at the Grossmont Union High School District, and that the Grossmont Union High School District was threatening to lay off over 60 librarians, psychologists, and counselors. And so students reached out to us because they know partner organizations that we work with and organizers we know on the ground in East County, and they asked us to help them with a Know Your Rights training for student protesters. And so they went on to organize the largest walkout of the 9 campuses. I believe it was March 11th. Yeah, it was a Tuesday. All the students, all the teachers, all the administrators, and everybody working on campus walked off of their 9 campuses in East County. And we're so proud of that work. And we will continue to provide, whether it's Know Your Rights for students, for protesters, for immigrants, for ICE-related issues. Or let's say if you are being targeted or discriminated at your place of employment, and you need somebody to, basically help you navigate that process, you would reach out to us.
So how does your faith kind of? I know I always say I put God first, my wife second, my children third, and the labor movement fourth, and I mix them up all the time. So anyway, but how does your faith?
You know, as a Muslim and as a practicing Muslim in America, you know, since 9/11, we have seen so much. And you know, my parents are refugees from Afghanistan, and so they fought against the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and we draw back. We have to draw on what we know. You know, one of the actions that we had back in 2018, it was like December of 2018, was called the Love Knows No Border campaign. And it was an action of all the faith leaders. I think it was over 100 faith leaders that came from across the country, all over the United States, to the southern border. And we had an action on the beach facing CBP and folks that were, you know, basically to speak against what was happening with our migrant siblings. And Imam Zaid Shaker came from San Francisco and talked about this concept of, and it was so beautiful. It was poignant. It was perfect. You know, Moses was a migrant, and Jesus was a migrant, and Muhammad was a migrant. And so spiritually, we are a part of a legacy of migrants, and it is incumbent upon us, whatever your faith, if you believe in God or anything good, to show up in this moment.
Thank you, Maizgan. I appreciate your time being here, and good luck to you with everything, and we'll be here to support you too.
Hello, welcome to the LaborLink podcast, where we share personal stories and analysis from organizers and advocates dedicated to the workers who make our stuff. I'm Judy Gearhart, and I'll be your host, along with my colleague Connor Moynihan. In this episode, we continue our series on fisher organizing, this time with a focus on Ghana's artisanal fishing sector. I'm really excited to share this interview with Eric Mawuko Atsiatorme. Eric worked for many years with Friends of the Nation Ghana on fishery policies and fisher outreach. He started as a child laborer on Lake Volta at age 7. He later owned his own canoe. Today, Eric is a lawyer studying for the bar.
My name is Eric Mawuko Atsiatorme. I grew up in Shama, which is a fishing community. My background is very diverse. I have been a fisherman from age 7. So in terms of the artisanal fishery sector, you've got to recognize the governance structure. Traditionally, at the London beach, we have the chief fisherman. Then we have the canoe owner. We have the fish mother. We have the bosun, and then we have the crew. The chief fisherman traditionally is supposed to occupy that position by virtue of long practice and old age. To focus on my experience, I became a canoe owner, and then I have a fish mother. The fish mother is someone who supports with financing the trips, and she has the first right of refusal when the fish are landed. She's the first person who gets to see the fish, and also to bargain with the owner of the canoe.
Can you also talk a little bit about the trips on the vessel? You were out for 3 or 4 days, and we've seen these vessels, right? There are these, canoes are maybe 12 feet long with planks in between, and then the fish are going underneath those planks when you store them.
The crew, usually we are about 6 to 7, maximum 8 crew member on board. So once we are out there on fishing expedition, to tell you the truth, it's very physical and quite energy sapping. We start casting the net around 6:30 p.m. and then we would end around 9:45, sometimes 10 p.m. And then we sleep for only 2 hours. And then within that 2 hours, we start hauling the net back. It includes removing the fish that has been caught by the net, and then making sure that you are putting them in the right cases, and then somebody is breaking the ice, and then making sure that preservation is going on at the same time. So by the time you finish hauling the net and then putting them back in shape for the next round of casting, you're almost around 9 a.m. And so you never get enough sleep, and the work is quite physical. Depending on the catch, we can spend a day or two maximum about 5 days, because then you run out of food, you run out of water.
So you fish during the night, and then during the day you're out, open sun, and it's phenomenally hot here. And you're sleeping on planks? Or is there any shade at all?
No, that's correct. You sleep on the planks. But to tell you the truth, when that 2 hours of sleep, you get to sleep like a baby, because the sea is very calm. You hardly feel the movement of the sea.
Thank you, Eric. This has been great.
You're listening to On Writing, a podcast from the Writers Guild of America East.
Hi, I'm Greg Iwinski, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Saturday Night Live head writers Allison Gates, Streeter Seidel, and Kent Sublette. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Greg.
So all of you are 48 hours removed from the finale of season 50. And there was so much exterior stuff. There's concerts and specials and documentaries, and everything about season 50 is big, so big that it, even outside of comedy and television, becomes this cultural event. If you live in New York City on the subway, you have like Keenan telling you to watch it while he's telling you not to subway surf, which my son is always like, that's SNL. But what was the process like for the season inside the show? Was it at the end of the day, you still have to make a show made of sketches and jokes and updates. So how different was it doing this season as writers?
I mean, for the writers, I think, who weren't working on the 50th, I think it was a standard season of SNL, with the exception of having a lot of high caliber guests coming by, especially in the early part of the season, because it was also an election year. So that's always another bit of crazy thrown onto it. But for those of us who worked on the regular show and the 50th specials, it was kind of like you're working two jobs at once a little bit. The planning for that and the meetings around the 50th special were taking place all season, even started in the summer. So it was definitely a lot, but then you just have so many daily and week-to-week demands to just get the regular show off the ground that you can kind of compartmentalize and put the 50th special aside in your brain and just be like, all right, what are we going to write, for Ariana Grande?
Yeah. I mean, you'd be doing all that, but then someone would say like, and now we're having a 50th meeting. And like, oh, we are right now when I'm trying to figure this thing out. Okay. So, but we had been talking about the 50th for years. I mean, we started having conversations, I think 2 years prior to what are the specials going to be and what was it going to feel like. And, it wasn't being concretely planned back then, but it was definitely being discussed. So we knew it was going to be a big, crazy year.
I think they started selling it 2 years before during the Summer Olympics, right? They were packaging it. NBC was kind of putting it all together as like, there's going to be these two big things, the Olympics and then the SNL 50th. And I remember seeing just on our feed some like advertiser presentation years ago. So it's been in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a funny combo of like people talking about it for a really long time and also in their heads knowing that SNL can only kind of happen really last minute. So a lot of things like big picture things discussed for a really long time, and then also knowing like everyone is going to kick into gear in a different way really close to when it happened. So it was kind of both timelines at once.
Yeah, it's the last week tonight we always talked about get ahead is like the phrase that you always talk about that is not possible. Like,
right.
Yeah.
How can you get ahead for a thing we're going to write about stuff that hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, it's like we have the summers off and people are like, well, they had all summer to think about what they were doing.
Congrats on season 50.
Thank you.
There was three of you. As you've said, just you guys.
Yeah.
Just us. No one else really. I mean, they tried to help, but really, ultimately, it was the three of us who wrote every single thing. Yeah.
The parts that were good.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us. It's great to talk to you.
Yes, thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for this week's edition of the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly. our roundup of some of the programs aired over the last week on more than 200 labor radio and podcast shows. They're all part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, shows that focus on working people's issues and concerns. We've got links to all the network shows, laborradionetwork.org. You can also find them. Use the hashtag LaborRadioPod on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Hey, don't forget to let us know what you think of the show. Drop us a note, info@laborradionetwork.org. You can be part of the network. You don't even need a microphone. Labor Radio Podcast Network t-shirts are available. They're union made. You'll find them in all sizes and 2 colors. laborradionetwork.org. This podcast recorded under a SAG-AFTRA collective bargaining agreement. The Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, edited this week by Captain Swing from his homeland. I produce the show. Our social media guru, always and forever, is Mr. Harold Phillips. Before we go, from students walking out in East County to fishers organizing off the coast of Ghana, this week's stories remind us what real grassroots power looks like. And now, union members, you've got a shot to celebrate that power in a big way. The Union's Power America sweepstakes are back for year 5. You could win $40,000 and a dream trip to New York City. Boost your odds. Complete a few fun online activities. No organizing required. This Labor Day, your solidarity could pay off big time. Enter now, unionpowerusa.com. No purchase necessary. Full rules, unionpowerusa.com. For the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, this has been Chris Garlock. Stay active. Stay tuned to your local Labor Radio Podcast show. We will see you next week.